happy Friday, and welcome to episode 35 of A Slice of Pie podcast. My name is Kat Loftus. Thank you so much for tuning in. This week we feature guest Cal Harrelson. Cal Harrelson is an experienced realtor, has lived and worked along the coast of South Carolina for many, many years, and a good old friend. Pat and I are great friends with he and Julie, and we're so glad he's decided to put his license with our company with Peace Sotheby's Realty. And we're going to feature him and talk with him about all the stories of his life and all the different things that he and Julie have done since they've moved to the coast. You're going to love these stories and all the famous people he's gotten to meet along the way. Also this week, the Loftus family is particularly happy to have celebrated our first children's wedding. Patrick married Siobhan last Friday in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we now have Patrick and Siobhan Loftus. That was very exciting. It was a beautiful wedding up at St. Gabriel's Catholic Church, and the reception was at the Mint Museum. We just had the best time with Siobhan's family, with Ann and Scott and her brother Connor. It was just so much fun. So we're delighted that they found each other, and we wish them all the best in their marriage and all God's blessings for a great life together. So love y'all. Good luck to y'all. Also, lots going on with real estate now. It really has picked up here along the coast. I added a new listing this week, a beautiful beach house on Pawleys Island for a 2 Myrtle Avenue. Check that one out. Also, I have one pending and Reunion Hall at 46 Beaufort Court. And also that cute, just great listing down in Georgetown at 709 Bell Rive Road in South Island Plantation. You really need to go check that one out. I can't believe it's even still on the market. It's a beautiful neighborhood, great house. And then I'm working on another one. I have paint on my hands from this other one where I go in and just help out a little. The contractor's really doing all the work. I'll go in and help them paint something every now and then, but that's a fun and exciting one that will be coming soon. But we're just happy to be back with our podcast. We had to take a couple of weeks off, but we're back, and you're going to love all the stories and everything that Cal has to say. He is a natural-born storyteller, so you will get a real big kick out of all his stories. And stay tuned for the last part. We show you some videos of the things he's done along the way. So sit back and enjoy episode 35 of A Slice of Pie podcast. Hi, Cal.
Hey, Kat, how you doing?
Thanks so much for joining me on our podcast today.
Man, I appreciate you having me.
Have you ever been on a podcast before?
Never in my life.
Have you ever listened to a Slice of Pie podcast before?
Never.
Will you become a follower, I hope?
Absolutely will, starting today.
Thank you, Cal. Okay, Cal, what we normally like to start off with is I ask my guests their name, and I'd like to hear your full name, where you were born, and where you went to school.
How about this for a story? Kat, my name's Calhoun Harrelson.
Okay.
In the 3rd grade, the teacher asked us everybody's middle name. Well, guess what? Everybody had a middle name. So I thought I surely have a middle name. I really didn't. I never was given a middle name. So I said, Hoon. My middle name's Hoon. So, well, ever since 3rd grade, every friend, still friends today, a lot of them, that heard that story called me Hoon. But I was born in Myrtle Beach. And we were living about a half a block from the ocean in what's called the Avenues, if you will. And I was 2 months old. My dad got the job as press secretary for then just elected Governor Fritz Hollings. So he moved us up to Columbia. So Columbia is where I grew up. Went to Heathwood Hall Episcopal School and USC and all of that. And then started working.
Okay, so you went to USC. What did you major in college?
Majored in political science.
Now, what was your first job after college?
Well, one of my first jobs was being co-director, if you will, of a congressional campaign. Floyd Spence from Columbia, 34-year incumbent, chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. It was quite a job. It was a lot of fun. State Senator at the time, Joe Wilson, asked me to go in with him to work on the re-election campaign. Well, Joe is now Congressman Joe Wilson, and the current congressman from the Midlands, and it runs down his district toward Hilton Head. Well, that job ended up it kind of morphed into another job as finance director for the South Carolina Republican Party out of Columbia. And then that job morphed into being the director for Reagan Bush Campaign 84 in South Carolina. That was the kind of 83 and 84 is when that happened. And that was the fundraising arm of the Reagan-Bush re-election campaign. Every state had one of those, and I was fortunate at age 24 or 5 to be directing that part of the campaign for South Carolina.
I didn't realize you were directing on. I thought you were just working on the campaign. That's pretty impressive that you were directing it at that young age.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, one day in the office, I was in the back part of the office, and this new employee walked in. Well, her name was Julie Cribb. Well, Julie Cribb, she walked in, and we set eyes on each other. We spoke a little bit, and the next day I took her out to lunch. Well, guess what? I couldn't tell her I was going to marry her. I knew it. I just knew it. Well, anyway, she was a Clemson girl. Me being a Carolina guy, we got along just fine. And next week we celebrate our 39th anniversary.
Congratulations.
So it all worked out pretty good.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And I want to say thank you to you and Julie, because when I met my husband, Pat Loftus, and we were dating, y'all let me stay at your house in Georgetown for 3 weeks.
Wasn't that fun?
And y'all coached me along, so I really appreciate that.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, y'all told me to come back to the beach for the realtor party, and it was all good. Yeah.
Then there's the rest of the story, right?
So you're a matchmaker. That's one of your side hustles. You didn't even know that you're good at matchmaking.
Well, I didn't know that, but I'll tell you, Julie probably had something to do with that too.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, we dated for about a year,
yeah.
And then she was ready to get married, and I wasn't quite ready, even though I told her we were going to get married. And so she beat it to the beach. I called a roommate one night and said, "Well, may I speak to Julie?" Well, everybody didn't have cell phones back then. "May I speak to Julie, please?" "Oh, she's gone to the beach." I said, "What?" "Yeah, she wanted to always live at the beach. She's gone." So I called her up and ended up, long story short, came back to the beach. We got married and began a public relations firm and kept right on working.
Okay, so let's go back to when you first moved to Pawleys Island. And I'm so happy you made the right choice to come back and find Julie, because she's a wonderful person. She's a wonderful person. But when y'all first were living here in Pawleys Island, how was it different then than it is today?
Very different. You'd ride down the highway in January, February, and you'd wave to somebody if you passed them, because you probably knew them. And now it's night and day. It's night and day.
Oh, Cal, I bet you still wave to people, Cal. I know you do.
Well, it's still a friendly place, and as I tell people, you live longer if you live in South Carolina, and if you live on the coast, breathing the coastal South Carolina trade winds and smelling pluff mud at low tide, you're going to live longer. It's just a matter of fact.
So I remember when y'all were married and y'all were living in North Litchfield, and Amy and I came down to stay with y'all for a little bit, and you took us out to eat at that restaurant, which now Habaneros, but it was something else back then. I don't even know who owned it way back then. But it was fun. But there were a lot of trees on the highway back then. A lot of trees, and I don't even know if Waccamaw High School was here yet.
The building that's there now was not there.
Yeah.
And of course, back then, these national builders hadn't found out about Georgetown and Horry County yet.
Right. And we only had just what were maybe one grocery store? One grocery store?
Yeah, that was at Pawleys Island, where Frank's is, right?
Yeah, well, that was called Marlowe's. And there was Farmer Jack, or whatever that A&P was.
I don't remember that one.
But there was no Lowe's, no Food Lion, no Piggly Wiggly. There was really not a lot. But it was nice, right? Not a lot of traffic. Not much traffic either.
There wasn't much traffic. And
but you know what? We still love living in Pawleys Island. It's still a great place to be, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So with your PR firm, what were you promoting with your PR firm?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a lot of fun. It was more of public relations than marketing. In other words, I didn't do billboards and ads on TVs and magazines. Public relations is earning exposure for your client. So one of my favorite accounts was Bald Head Island, just off of Southport, North Carolina, off the coast. They hired me to give them exposure. So I found out quickly that developers protected the endangered loggerhead turtle. Especially back then, developers were known to kind of do what they wanted to do. It was all about making money. Well, Kent and Mark Mitchell, the owners back then, they were from Texas. They owned Bald Head. They were protecting the turtles. And so I thought, well, gosh, there's a story right there. Well, I had a story placed in the Raleigh News and Observer, had a reporter come over, and she wrote a good story for us, which appeared then on the wire services, which back then was important because it gave you exposure in newspapers and other places. Well, that story appeared in every daily newspaper in America. And then following that, I had Bryant Gumbel and Willard Scott talking about Bald Head Island on the Today Show for 4.5 minutes, which was, you can't buy that kind of exposure. They mentioned Bald Head Island like 24 times, and Willard Scott talked about being bald and Bald Head Island and all that kind of stuff. So that was one of my most favorite clients, if I can say it like that. And we go back to Bald Head to vacation. It's a beautiful place.
There's no cars on Bald Head. It's just golf carts. Is that
Just golf carts. Yes, kind of. You get on the ferry and you go over and you throw your keys in your suitcase or travel bag, and you kind of forget what's behind you and you enjoy your stay at Bald Head.
just off the coast of North Carolina? Any other memorable clients you had during the run as a PR?
No, I tell you, I had a lot of clients. I had banks. I had festivals. One was the Crawfish Festival. Crawfish Festival was a lot of fun, and I had a local TV personality do a story about the Crawfish Festival, Diane Devon Stokes. She'd love to hear about this again. And also Joe Penner in Columbia on WIS TV, their noon talk show. He had me up and I talked about the Crawfish Festival. I made them both turn red when I asked a question, what do you do? And this was on a billboard too for the festival. What do you do with crawfish? You pinch the tails and you suck the heads. And they didn't know what to do with that. But if you eat crawfish, you know that's what you do.
Pinching tails and sucking. I remember. I think you put it on a T-shirt. It was great.
It was on a T-shirt.
That was a great catchphrase for that. I love that. Okay, so Cal, you've been part of the Chamber of Commerce, haven't you?
I was back in the early '90s, right after Hurricane Hugo. I happened to be president of the Chamber of Commerce of Georgetown County. That wasn't a very good time to be president of the chamber after Cat 4 hurricane comes through, right? Well, I was. And fortunately, not fortunately for the people who owned along the ocean front, but fortunately for all the businesses back on Highway 17, Pawleys and Litchfield and Georgetown and Murrells Inlet and Myrtle Beach even, those businesses were not damaged. They were open the next day. But guess who said something on the nightly news the night of the hurricane? Tom Brokaw said to everybody listening, the whole world, that there's in South Carolina on the beaches, there's dead deer on the highways, there's raw sewage on the beaches, and there's dead snakes in the pools. Can you believe that? None of that was true. So from having the political experience I had with people like Lee Atwater, who ran the Reagan-Bush campaign and who was from Columbia, I called Lee up. I said, Lee, I got to get to the president so he can maybe say something good about the South Carolina coast. So he set it up. So I was able to meet George Bush Sr., the daddy, H.W. Bush. Got to meet him in the Roosevelt Room right next to the Oval Office in the West Wing.
And you went to the White House?
Yes. And Lee Atwater helped arrange that. And so I got to ask him if he would be kind enough to say a good thing about the South Carolina coast after Hurricane Hugo, because we didn't have what Tom Brokaw said we had. So, yeah, I beat it up there and was able to get with him. And he sent me a nice note back. He used to hand type letters to people in a little private office next to the Oval Office. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, I got one typed by him, appreciated my coming by. I don't know if he ever said anything or not, but if he did, that's what I wanted, and that's what I went up to ask him to do. So that was a lot of fun. Now, one last thing, when I was chamber president, I had Carroll Campbell come as our guest speaker.
What a great governor. He was just the best.
He was one of the best. Absolutely was. Nice guy, too. Nice family. He and his wife, Iris, they came to the Deborah Dew Clubhouse where we were having a dinner and the annual banquet. Well, Iris and I were standing up at the top of the clubhouse looking out over the front entryway for Carol, the governor, her husband, and she remarked, she looked out the window and looked back at me. She goes, "Cal, this is a beautiful place. We've never been here." Well, guess what? As you know, they ended up buying a house over near the beachside and living there. That was their permanent residence for a long time. And so here comes the governor in his black SUVs with the sled agents and all that stuff. So he comes in, and he was a tough guy. He always had to have everything right, every hair in place too. And we're standing up there in front, and I was getting ready to introduce him. And Elsbos, yeah. The music was playing from the ceiling. He said, "Cut the dang music off." said, okay. So I went and I told somebody and they cut it off. But anyway, that's my Carol Campbell story. They'd never been to Devereux. That was the first time they came to visit. So I'm glad to be a part of that, and of course being able to go to the White House um, after the hurricane to hopefully get the president to say something nice.
Well, we appreciate you supporting our beautiful little town here. And yes, businesses were open after the hurricane because they were kind of helping everybody sustain and meet up, just,
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
it was an important time. So thank you for doing that.
it was fun.
Yeah. And Governor Campbell's house on the creek there in Devereux was just a gorgeous house, gorgeous view. And it sold a couple of years ago. So I know that whoever bought it is taking good care of that house.
Well, they were kind of y'all's neighbors because y'all are in Devereux too.
Well,
have been for a long time.
We're not in that section. We're back on the golf course, but they just were wonderful people. And you would see Governor Campbell going to play golf, and Miss Iris would be meeting with her ladies, either playing cards or doing something fun on the beach. So she, lovely people for sure, for sure. Anyway, well, thank you for letting us know that. Then how long after that did you go into real estate?
Had the public relations firm about 8 or 10 years. And then one day my wife Julie was already in real estate. And I went with her up to Myrtle Beach to pick a key up at a real estate office for a house she was going to maybe show the next day. And we didn't have these fancy lot boxes and things back then. This was 30 something years ago. And so I was sitting out in the parking lot and it was dusk and I could see inside some people walking around. And I kind of thought, God, real estate's, I don't know, real estate's not a serious business, or it's for girls or ladies. My wife was doing a really good job with it. And I'm sitting there in the car at dusk looking in the windows, and there's men walking around with coats and ties on, very professional. Well, I ended up going to work with those folks for a couple of years, and then moved south down to Garden City and Litchfield Polish, working that area.
And finally, you're here with us at P70s.
And I'm so excited. Yeah. It's like taking all my real estate, the successes and the learning and all of that to another level. And it's really exciting.
We're so grateful that you're here with our company. Thank you for making that decision.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I was asked to be here.
Well, there's a lot of things I remember that I know about your real estate career, and I obviously have always followed your social media. And tell us what your social media is if anybody wants to follow you on social media.
Well, there's a couple of websites. CoastalLivingSC.com, abbreviation for South Carolina. CoastalLivingSC.com is one. That's my real estate one. Now, I also paint palmetto trees, and maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. Those are called calmeadows because I'm Cal and I paint palmettos, our state tree. And so that's calmeadows.com. And another one that'll send you to my real estate site is nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina.com. That's a fun one.
You own that? Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina?
Well, I got that domain now.
That's very cool to have that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What's your Instagram page? Is it just Cal Harrelson, your Instagram?
Just Cal Harrelson.
Same for your Facebook, Cal Harrelson?
That's right.
Okay, cool. So when you and Julie were living in Garden City, because I know you've lived in different neighborhoods along the way, so many pretty neighborhoods, you had a palmetto tree project. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
We sure did. She kind of spearheaded it when she was working with Dunes Realty up that way. And what we did was we sent letters out and communicated with the owners south of the pier at Garden City Beach to contribute toward our buying palmetto trees. I almost said palmetto trees for Garden City Beach. And we were able to buy and have planted 336 palmetto trees just south of the pier at Garden City. And 36 of them didn't make it, but 300 of them did. And they're all down there now. I'd wonder what it would look like down there without those 300 trees.
But I think that the thought and philosophy was behind it was this is our state tree, and let's put one in everybody's yard to represent our state.
Absolutely. And my wife she's a master gardener, and she's into the landscaping. That's something she does these days. Is she does designs for landscapes for friends and people's yards. She's doing that today over at True Blue Nursery, buying a bunch of plants for somebody's yard. So she was always into the landscaping. So she was really into that. And we got trees. The trees were actually dug up the day before in Florida and brought up here and planted. They were very fresh. We had a good grower. He'd dig them up. They had white sand, real white powdery Florida sand on the root balls. So it was really neat.
That's very cool.
A lot of fun.
Very cool. Okay, so anybody that follows your social media, they'll see when you sell another beautiful beach house, you will say the word gone. And you will put it on your real estate sign. So do you have that sign with you right now?
Yeah, look at this. I just happen to keep
I
these.
love
I
that.
happen to keep these
Yeah.
close by
Uh-huh.
because I even had people call me up and go, I want to list my house with you because I want a gone sign in the front
That's
yard.
right. That's right.
And sure enough, we hope it. Listen, you don't get a gone sign until it's closed. The
That's
deed's
right.
recorded and everybody's made some money. So that's an important sign to have in your yard.
Very important sign. But you've had a lot of success, and I've seen a lot of gone signs on some beautiful beach homes along the South Carolina coast here. So you've been very fortunate. You're good at what you do.
It's been a lot of fun, and we've been blessed with it and looked after with it, and it's been a fun, good market. As I tell people, Kat, my real estate market is typically either on the salt water or close enough to smell the pluff mud at low tide. That's my world every day, and I love it.
Well, you're very good at it for sure,
You're
and you also do great short videos and reels highlighting some of the best parts of the coastal area. You talk about some of our seafood. You talk about some of our traditions along the coast. So if you're not following Cal's social media, you need to do that now because he is very entertaining. He is. So let's move over and let's start talking about your Cal Meta painting. So if I can just move the camera up here for just a little bit, and you can see that beautiful painting behind you. Now that's humongous and it's so beautiful, and I love that one a lot. That is a rendition of our South Carolina state tree is the palmetto tree, and if you look closely up there, let me see if I can get it. You can see a C up there in the branches because that's for the crescent moon on our state seal. So you want to talk about the palmetto paintings and how that came about?
Well, I tell you, it started about 15 years ago. We lived in Greenville for just a couple of years, and a cousin of mine said, you ought to. I'd painted a few of those before, and she said, "You're an artist. You could sell those." I said, "No, I'm not, and I don't think I could." Well, I got to be friends. We got to be friends with a store on Augusta Road in Greenville, and I talked the people in there to allowing me to put some paintings in. So I brought 20 pieces of plywood with these Calmetta paintings on them into the store, and about 2 weeks later, my cousin's wife up there called me. She said, "Cal, they're all gone. Gone. It's gone again."
Something
Well,
else was gone.
that wasn't
Something else was gone.
Listen, if Calmettas are going too, then everybody's having fun. So I said, "Doggone, you're kidding me." So people bought them all. So that kind of started the thing.
What size canvas were you using at first?
Well, those were on plywood.
Oh, plywood.
The first ones were plywood. Yeah, I'd go into Home Depot or Lowe's at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night just before they closed. And so I'd have some guys cut the wood for me, and I'd have to cut it real slow so it wouldn't rip the edges. And that's how that all started.
So was it about like an 8x10 or
a foot by 2 feet?
Yeah,
2 feet by not 2 by 3. That's big. And that one back there behind me is really big. I did that one that was a commissioned piece. I get a lot of people now calling, wanting certain colors, certain sizes, and I only paint mostly on canvas now. And as far as wall hangings are concerned, she called me about that one. That one was going to hang over their fireplace in the new home on the water at Lake Murray out of Columbia. Well, that one was dry and ready to go to deliver, and I had it leaning up against a wall in our dining room. We had dining room chairs that had pokey backs on them, and one of our Boykin Spaniels, okay, that's a state dog. I'm Calhoun, painting palmetto trees, a state tree. It's all South Carolina, right? Anyway, one of our dogs knocked it over, and the top of the chair poked a hole through the top of it. So I put a Band-Aid on the back of it. You can't even tell it, but I couldn't sell her that one, so I did another one. I ended up keeping that one. That's the biggest one, other than one hanging in a cousin's house in Greenville that's at the bottom of the stairs, cousin Ralph Walker. It's all gold, and it's really pretty.
Well, I love that one, and I begged you to paint one for me, and you did. So you delivered to me last week. Thank you. It's hanging in my office. I love it so much.
You've got one, and let me tell you, some other people that I don't know if you know have them or not. The Trumps have one. They hung it up in the Trump Tower. The Haleys have one.
Nikki Haley?
Ambassador Haley.
Wow.
Senator Tim Scott has one. Lee Greenwood has one. Saying that good God bless America kind
Proud
of song.
to be an American.
Let me tell you what happened with that real quick. In 1984, I was delegation aide for the South Carolina Republican Party to the National Convention in Dallas. And on like the final night, Ronald Reagan was being reelected or renominated for a second term. He and Nancy walked out on stage, and I was there that night, and everybody was cheering, balloons were dropping, and Lee Greenwood walked out behind them and sang that song for the first time. Now, fast forward 40 years. I saw he was going to be at the Alabama Theater a couple of months ago. I called the owner, who's a good friend of ours. He worked it out so I could meet him in the green room, if you will, before his show. And I took him a Calmetta painting, and I told him, and he, oh, by the way, I framed it, and he held it, and he goes, "Did you frame it for me too?" He was the nicest guy. And I said, "I heard you sing that song the first time, and I remember," and it was really neat to be able to face tell him how great it was that night when Ronald Reagan was being renominated for reelection. And all of that backs up to how I met Julie too, my wife, in politics in that back room in Columbia. So when she walked in that day.
You're a good salesman for sure.
But
Well, I'm thinking about a lovely Greenwood song, "Proud to be an American." It evokes a lot of feeling and emotion, and political campaigns and rallies evoke a lot of feeling and emotion. So that was a lot of.
they do, but let me tell you some other people who have them. Jack Nicklaus has one. I gave it to him over at Polly's Plantation on the 30th anniversary of his golf course that he designed.
Wow.
This was about a year and a half ago. I happened to see him 30 years ago too, on the same golf course when he was here opening the golf course. So it was fun. I was able to give him a Calmetta painting. And I always thought he was big and tall and, the number one legend in golf. He's shorter. He's kind of grandfatherly now. He was standing next to me and I was looking down at him and he looks up with these beautiful grandfatherly light blue eyes looking at me going, "Thank you. I really appreciate that." And I'm told that he kept it, that was a wooden one. I kept it under his arm all afternoon and he took it back to his home in Ohio.
That's
And I really appreciated that. I gave Ollie North one too at a Christian men's gathering at Caledonia Fish Club one night. He spoke and I took a painting for him. He thanked me and he said, "I'm going to take it over to my house at Polly's. He's got a house there. I think you know that. And I'm going to hang it up in my beach house." Another one, I'm just rattling on.
Keep going.
Another one I gave to Bruce Johnston. He's the original keyboard player for the Beach Boys.
Okay.
My brother and I went to Columbia to see them one night. He and original singer Mike Love and then some background people still do their show. And lo and behold, the next morning, walking through the lobby in the hotel we were staying in next to the Colonial Center where they played was Bruce Johnston. Well, I didn't have a Calmetta painting, but I had a Calmetta hat with the Calmetta embroidered on the front. So we started talking to him. I said, "Here, I want to give you this hat." And so we took some pictures and all. He said, "I'm going to take it back to California and wear it proudly." And I'll tell you what, he told us too there, he thanked us for following the Beach Boys over the years and all. He said, "You helped send my 4 boys to college. There's 2 are doctors, 2 are engineers. You wouldn't think that. The Beach Boys, a lot of them were back there in drugs back then." And he told us, my brother and me standing there, I didn't do that. A lot of people were doing that. So Bruce Johnston's a pretty neat guy.
Pretty stand-up guy, it sounds like.
Jim Cantori.
He's
got one. The Hurricane
Weather Channel, yeah.
I gave him one when it wasn't hurricane season. And I said, "Jim," and he took it back to his house. He lives outside of Atlanta. I said, "Jim, I don't want to see you during hurricane season. Nowhere along our great coast of South Carolina." And Jay Leno was one of the last ones I gave one to. He took it and put it in his $13 million house in Beverly Hills. So,
pretty impressive. Long live the Calmetta. And I'm looking at your credenza, your piece of furniture back there. It has a lot of famous people on there. You have met. Are these all the people you've given Calmettas to?
It's a lot of them. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Gosh,
a lot of fun. And that I call painting the Calmettas my night job. I sell real estate during the day, and my night job is painting the Calmettas. And I also paint them on wine glasses and champagne flutes and other things.
You have a coffee cup here on your desk with
coffee cup. Oh yeah, there's a coffee cup right there with a Calmetta on it. So I paint them on anything you can paint a Calmetta on. Somebody asked me if I could paint one on the bottom of their pool. I said, "Well, I don't know if a painting and water would mix too well." So
yeah, I wonder what you'd have to glaze it with to keep it there.
I have to glaze it with something.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I'm not doing a pool.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. So you've really lived a charmed life, but you're really smart. You have such a great creative brain, and you know how to talk to people.
You do
have the gift of gab. and I love your office here. You have a lot of creative things in your office. If I can just pan around a little bit,
Well, thank you.
we got some cotton in the corner back there, and then over here we got uh, it's a trophy buck, and then we got the beautiful. And that's like a
There's a deer and an Audubon print,
Audubon. Yeah, you got a lot of.
and you got a turkey foot. I love to hunt turkeys and deer.
So that was my next question. When you are not painting Calmettas and you're not selling real estate, what do you like to do?
Well, I like to hunt, like to fish. Um, that's it. That's it. The Calmettas is how I release, if you will. That's how I do that.
And it's pretty effortless for you, isn't it?
Well, it just kind of morphs. They just kind of happen and they work. Some nights I'll go into my painting room, so to speak, and I'll start on something and it just doesn't feel right. So I just put the brush down and go do something else. But Julie, my wife, and I do an awful lot together. Dinner, lunches, whenever we can, and we do a lot together. So I guess my spare time is spent with her, which is where it should be.
I love that. I love that. She's a great person for
sure.
She
is, absolutely. I married up, as they say.
Yeah, there you go. Cal, if you could give a message to our listeners, what would you say about what you're grateful for in life, and why is it so great to live here along the South Carolina coast?
Well, with a name like Calhoun, like I was saying, and my grandmother's name was a Calhoun, and she actually visited the Calhoun Mansion in Clemson. If you stand in front of the house and look up in the top left room, there's a bedroom. That was my grandmother's bedroom. And she'd go, and she's a little child, and she'd run around in bare feet. But John C. Calhoun.
That was my next. She was related to John C. Calhoun.
Yeah, he was my four greats uncle, below his brother Patrick. They were from Allendale. And excuse me, yeah, you'll have that anyway. I forget where they're from.
But so if our listeners don't know, John C. Calhoun owned the land in the upstate, which eventually was given to his son-in-law Thomas Clemson, and it became Clemson University.
There you go. Clemson married a Calhoun, and something came out of all that.
I'm glad it worked out.
Which was a good thing, but it's kind of fun. He was the first, I guess, the only vice president under two presidents. Mm-hmm. Monroe and Adams and Andrew Jackson. He was president, so it's kind of vice president under them. So it's kind of fun, but that stuff doesn't pay the bills. Kind of like backing up to Myrtle Beach for a second. In the early days, my grandfather was first mayor of Myrtle Beach in 1938. So he and his council established the government in Myrtle Beach, and they brought in Highway 501. They opened it up so the people, the visitors, not tourists, the visitors who were from west of here, mostly South Carolina, North Carolina, they could get to the beach. They also established all the public beach accesses in Myrtle Beach, so people could always get to the beach. And they opened a little airport. They called it Harrelson Municipal Airport, which became Myrtle Beach,
International.
International now.
Right.
And you can fly it anywhere from here. So, and my grandfather and father used to hunt with their little dog Blackie, right around the Market Common area. Around the airport was an Air Force base too, and that was fun. They hunted turkey and deer and squirrels. I think more squirrels than anything with a little dog named Blackie. So Dad grew up with a friend of his at the beach. His friend's name was Booby, Dr. Holmes Springs. He was a renowned surgeon in the end, but he actually might be that deer right there. He on the wall. He skinned that deer for me on the deer drive. But he and my dad were best friends growing up in Myrtle Beach. And my dad was called Bubba and Booby. So it was Bubba and Booby.
There's a lot of B's going on. Bubba.
Anyway, and my dad, he passed away a few years ago. When he died, he was the last surviving member of General MacArthur's staff in Tokyo.
How about that?
After the war. So that's kind of neat.
Part of the greatest generation.
Little trivia, but we're all such South Carolina people. My wife and I were actually walking around a place that sold granite and granite countertops and that kind of thing. And I found this piece of stone just laying there. And I picked it up and I said, well, that's South Carolina. You couldn't have cut it any better. It's just laying there by accident. There aren't any accidents. And so I took it inside. I said, I'll be happy to pay for that. That's our state right there. And sure enough, guy said, just take it. I appreciate you bringing it in. So that was fun. But a little more about South Carolina. You probably don't want to know anymore.
No, you have a deep love for our state, Cal, and I really appreciate that. I thought I loved South Carolina, but I think you love it even more than I do.
Well,
It's a great place to live.
Been fortunate to have lived in Columbia, in the Midlands, the upstate, Greenville for a little bit, now here on the coast. And like I said before, live in South Carolina, you live a little longer.
I believe that. So have we covered everything, Cal? Is there anything else you want to add? I think we've got most of it. We talked about what you're doing when you're not working.
I know one extra thing.
What's that?
I forgot to tell you. A couple other people who have those Calmetta paintings. One's Rut Leland. He's the longest serving current mayor of McClellanville, longest serving currently in the nation. And Pat and Cat Loftus have one. I think you mentioned that a minute ago.
I love it. It's just so beautiful. Mayor Carol Giroux walked into my office the other day. She said, "Oh, I want one." She said, "I want to get one." So, Cal, if somebody is listening to this and they want to have one of your Calmetta paintings, how can they get in touch with you?
Just get with me at cal.harrelson at peacesir.com. Peace Sotheby's, International Realty. Where we're sitting now. Love my office, love my place here, love the people. So glad to be working with you.
Yeah, well, we go way back. Way back. But I'll make sure to put your email in the captions so people can get in touch with you if they want a Calmetto. It really is a keepsake, and it's a memento. And as we get older in life, Cal, I thought, oh my gosh, which one of my children is going to want my Calmetto? Because it really is so beautiful and it's so unique. You can't find them anywhere else but here, where you've made them.
You're awfully kind. And one last thing, with the real estate part of what I do, I want to let everybody know that my goal, particularly for my sellers, and I represent more sellers than buyers, is to find one pre-qualified buyer willing to pay your price. That's always been my motto. And a good product plus good marketing always equals good results. So you combine those things together, and it's a win-win. And now here at Peace Sotheby's, all good.
You are an excellent realtor. You're a professional realtor, and I know that your sellers have been very happy to have you as representing them. Well, thank you so much for joining us on A Slice of Pie, and it's just a joy to be near you and know you and Julie, and we hope you have lots of continued success.
What a thrill. Thank you so much.
See you soon. Bye.
Another one gone on the coast of South Carolina. Y'all know I sell real estate during the day, but I paint Calmettos during the night. Look at that. That's a pretty red, white, and blue one I did. America. At North Litchfield Beach. You know North Litchfield has the highest beach in South Carolina? Cal Harrelson here on the South Carolina coast. Guess what happened today? Another one gone this week. Not that nice boat back there that just went by, but this home behind me, we just sold this morning. Gone. Another one gone. Second row, Garden City Beach. It's a great market. Don't forget, invest in coastal South Carolina. There's so many great facets to Cal Harrelson. I guess we all know the word gone is associated with Cal Harrelson now. For the many, many times he's sold homes, I love that he uses that gone trademark when he has sold a house. And he had his own public relation firm, and he was heavily involved in politics when he was right out of college. And he has met so many people along the way. And his great extra talent of painting the Calmettos. And as you heard in the podcast, he painted one for me. Here it is on the wall. Let me go get it so you can see it up close. It's so gorgeous. He painted the canvas a little bit gray, and then there's a lot of gold in here, and navy blues, and some little bit of specks. And of course, he would put a couple of pieces of orange in here for the Clemson girl and me. So that was really kind of Cal to paint that one for me. He has this little CH right here. Cal Harrelson is where he signs it. So if you want one of those, check out his website. In the caption, I'll put that link below. But we're so glad you tuned in. I hope you will subscribe to our channel, and I hope you will like it and share it with your friends and neighbors and family. I love hearing the comments when we see you out in public. Said, hey, I'm loving your podcast. I watch your videos all the time. So thanks for that. I really appreciate the good feedback. And if you'd like to be on the podcast or know of a good story we should cover, let me know.
We hope you have a great weekend and a great week, and we will see you next week with another edition of a Slice of Pie podcast. See you soon.